Well, this took me long enough, didn't it? I promised you guys this video a while ago, at least a couple of months ago. I am going to be talking about talc-free loose powders. I have tested 16 of them. I will be talking about all 16 in this video. So the reason why I wanted to make this video about talc-free loose powders is because when I talked about Givenchy reformulating their powder, why did they do that? We love their previous powder. What's going on? It's because they removed the talc, and many companies are removing talc. You guys reminded me of that fact. I read all of your comments like, yeah, Givenchy reformulated because they want to get rid of the talc. So many companies are doing that. And yes, okay, great. But I do just want to say that they're doing this not because talc inherently is poisonous to us, is that when they mine it or when it's gone through manufacturing, asbestos has been found in talc. And so if it's irresponsibly mined and irresponsibly produced, in the past, asbestos has been found in talc. So that's what I found in all the readings that I kind of came across. But consumers were, rightfully so, very concerned with talc being in their beauty products. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. That's why companies are removing talc. That's why we started this discussion, and that's why I'm doing this video. So for these 16 powders, I have been wearing them on and off over the past few months. I've been wearing them all day. I've been wearing them with different foundations. I definitely have come up with some very strong opinions on these powders. And for all 16 of these powders, I did apply all of them again, just under sort of like standard conditions. I used the Dior foundation stick just because for testing, and when I'm going to be removing and reapplying makeup, this is just the easiest to reapply. So I used all the powders over this stick foundation this morning so that I could film some B-roll for you so you guys could see me applying the powders and what they look like, at least under studio lighting. So for the 16 powders, what I've done is I've categorized them in powders I do not like, powders that are okay, they're all right, and powders that I really like. So we'll be talking about them in that regard. I also wanted to share with you, I personally have dry skin. I am 51 years old, and so I really like powders that have a nice, soft, matte, soft satin kind of finish. I like a little bit of a nice kind of pearly sheen, nothing glowy, nothing like a highlighter, but a really kind of soft look. I do not like a matte finish. So there are some powders in here that do give me a matte finish, and if that's your thing, I will definitely point it out. That may be the powder for you, but that's not for me. I also took into account things like packaging. That's like the least important thing, but that's something I definitely want to mention to you guys. There are some that I really don't like, and there are some that I think are really great. I did also take into account the translucency of each powder, because for me personally, again, I don't like powders that add coverage or pigmentation necessarily to my foundation and concealer. All I want a powder to do is to bring down excess shine, to give my skin just a really soft, blurred, kind of creamy complexion. I don't necessarily want any sort of add-on to coverage. So I took that into account. I also took into account longevity. I wanted to make sure the powders that I recommend to you worked all day without any sort of touch-ups. And again, I have dry skin, so please take that into account. And then fragrance, and that actually only pertains to one powder that I try that has fragrance, but I will mention that. But that's pretty much the things that I kept in mind when I was playing around with these powders. But when I do put powder on, it is for a few reasons. And one is for longevity. So I do like to put powder down if I'm maybe going out all day and I'm maybe going out for lunch and then I'm going out for dinner and I want to look nice and presentable throughout the day. Powder definitely helps with longevity. The second thing is sometimes I do put on, because I have dry skin, I do put on a lot of base products like a primer and then a glowy primer, and then I'll put down like a foundation, and sometimes I'll look up and I'll be like, oh my God, I look like kind of a grease ball. And while I don't ever want to look completely matte, I do sometimes want to take the shine down. So that's another reason why I like to use powder. The next reason I like to use powder is around my eyes. So if I do use a concealer, it really is just to prevent product from moving around. So, you know, not only if I've put down like a really emollient base, but just if I've put down a concealer, maybe I've put down a lot of cream products or something like a cream bronzer and a cream blush, and I want to set it all down, I will dust, you know, lightly like a loose powder over everything. It's nice to just sort of like set your makeup down, not only for longevity, but just so that they don't move. Don't move, don't melt, don't do anything weird throughout the day. And then the last reason is if I do have a lot of cream products down, but then I'm gonna go in with like a powder product, sometimes a powder product just works over powder a little bit better. Sometimes powder can like catch in like really emollient cream products. And so let's say I have down a cream bronzer and a cream blush, but I want to use a powder highlight, I'll use like loose powder over my cheek area, and then I'll be able to like lay down powder highlight a little bit more smoothly. So those are the few reasons why I use loose powder. But again, I don't use loose powder all the time because I do have dry skin, and it's something I'm really, really picky about because I do have dry skin. Okay, all of that's out of the way. Let's go ahead and jump into these powders. So I'm clumping all of these powders into these categories of don't like, they're okay, and powders I really do like, because a lot of what I have to say, or a lot of the reasons why I put them in those categories, are very similar to each powder. So let me share with you first the powders that I don't like. And this is not going to be a surprise because you saw me try this on for you guys. The Guerlain Peru Gold Skin Diamond Micro Powder, the Haus Labs Bio Blurring Loose Setting Powder, the Shiseido Synchro Skin Invisible Silk Loose Powder, and then the Makeup by Mario Surreal Skin Soft Blur Setting Powder. Now, all of these powders I felt were too matte for my liking, and I don't mind, you know, like I was saying, I like powders that bring down my shine, but I don't want powders that are going to make my skin look dry and just flat, like just take the life, like suck the life out of my skin. And I found that these 4 powders definitely did that. The Guerlain Peru Gold Skin, let's just break this one down first. This one is the one that has fragrance. So right off the bat, I'm kind of turned off by that. I don't really like fragrance in any of my makeup, but sometimes it's fine. It's unoffensive, or it's very light. It fades really quickly. This is not light. It's not the heaviest by far. Like I've definitely tried powder, like the La Prairie powder. It's almost too fragrant for me to use. This one, I think because all the other powders I was testing had no fragrance, this one really stood out. So anyway, in my book, that's sort of a ding against this powder, is that it has fragrance. I know some of you like fragrance in your makeup products, so I thought I would mention that, but for me, it's a no. And then the packaging is just very straightforward. It has the little cutout holes at the top, just a typical sifter packaging. Nothing to write home about. I wouldn't say that that's a bad thing. Now, my issue with this powder is it looks inconsistent on my skin. And this actually isn't the only one that did that, but it just made areas of my skin look drier than I preferred. And then there were areas of my skin that I felt like it didn't really bring down the shine. It was just very strange. It also, for a couple instances, when I used it over liquid foundation, it pilled. So maybe the foundation was a little bit too emollient for this powder. Maybe I was using a little bit too much. It did not pill in this B-roll that I'm cutting away to because I am using the stick foundation underneath instead of a liquid foundation. It did not pill over that, but this one just overall was like the worst performing powder for me. I just never knew what to expect when I was using it. The fragrance was a turn off. Just personally didn't really like it for my very, very dry skin. So that's the Guerlain. The other powder that just didn't, it just like didn't do anything for my skin is the Haus Labs. So it's, you know, it's fine. This could have gone into the category of like, it's okay. But my issue with the Haus Labs was actually very similar to the Guerlain, where I felt like some parts of my face, it didn't like set down at all. It didn't bring the shine down at all. And then other parts of my face looked on the drier side. So I didn't really like that. And it just, like I said, it just is like, it just didn't do anything for my complexion. I felt like after I put on, especially that stick foundation, my skin looks, you know, kind of healthy, kind of radiant. And then after putting down a powder, I understand it's going to take down some of the shine, but I don't want to take the life out of my complexion. And that's what this one did. And then these last two in this, I just don't like them category, both just made my skin look very, very dry. The Shiseido Synchro Skin Invisible Silk Loose Powder it just, yeah, it just made my skin look very, very flat, very, very dry. And I was actually very surprised because their Sink or Skin line, I love the foundation, the concealer, both very, very nice. Both have a very nice like skin-like finish, but this loose powder, it was just a little bit too much, just a little bit too matte on my skin. And then the Makeup by Mario, same thing, just very, very dry, very matte. And again, because I have dry skin, not great. Now, all of these, if you have normal to oily skin, if you like a matte finish, you may want to try out these powders, especially the Makeup by Mario and the Shiseido, because I didn't really have any issues with them like I did with the House Labs or the Guerlain in terms of inconsistencies on my complexion. These were just like matte, matte. Don't be alarmed. I'm so sorry. I look completely different because I'm filming this portion on a different day. Anyway, whatever. I had to refilm the portion where I'm talking about the Givenchy Prism Lip powder because this powder is what kicked off this video. Anyway, this powder, compared to the original, is not good. It is not good. Their reformulation of this powder to remove the talc just ruined it. Their previous version was so good. We all loved it. It did exactly what I love loose powders to do, which is, and I keep saying it, gives you that creaminess, that soft blurred look, sets down your makeup. It sets the stage for other powder products to be applied, beautifully over it. And when I first used this powder, first of all, it is fragranced. So when I said that the Guerlain is the only powder that's fragranced, just ignore me because this one is fragranced and the Chanel one is slightly fragranced. Anyway, they're all very, very light, and I feel like by the time I'm brushing it on, I don't even smell it, which is why I just didn't think of it. But anyway, back to the powder. The finish of this powder is so strangely micro glittery, and it has like this weird, it has the strangest finish. It has the strangest finish. It has a really matte base, and it looks like there's just these strange particles on top that make it a little bit shinier. Like they just added some like weird particles to make it look less matte, but none of it is cohesive. I don't know if that makes any sense. It doesn't even just look like loose powder with a little bit of shimmer in there. No, it looks completely, like they look completely removed from one another. It is just a really, really poor version of their loose powder. And it's such a shame because I do think in studio lighting, it doesn't actually look that bad, but it's one of those makeup products that lies to you. And I hate that. You put it on indoors, you put it on in your lighting, you think it looks great, and then you go outside and it looks completely different. That makes me crazy. Anyway, this is guilty of that and just not a fan. I also don't like this packaging. I really, really don't like this whole 4-chamber situation. Now, if you use a powder puff, it's not that big of a deal, right? You turn it over, you get a little bit of all the powders on the powder puff, but I don't use a powder puff because, like I said, I really like to buff powder in. And to pour this out, you never get an equal amount of each of these powders. And and it's just not a good idea. But anyway, I just don't like this powder. It's so strangely dusty and like shiny and micro glittery all at the same time. It's just not a good idea for a powder. So unfortunately, Givenchy, you are definitely one of the worst powders that I've tried. All right, next up, I've got all the powders that are okay. These are all okay. These are powders that I, probably won't repurchase. These are powders that maybe I'll reach for if I just feel like a change, but these are definitely not my favorites. So I'm gonna start with Hourglass because I feel like this is an unpopular opinion. This is their Veil Translucent Setting Powder, and I like this powder. Let me start by saying that. I like this powder. I like the finish of it. It has that really soft satin finish. It makes my skin look really creamy. I love it. It does a great job setting down my makeup. It also is great longevity-wise. I feel like it really set down my makeup and kept my makeup in place. The issue that I have with Hourglass is that I feel like I have to be very, very careful when I use it. And I feel like I've said this on my channel before, that if I have just a little bit too much of this powder on my brush, it will very, very quickly look thick on my skin. It will all of a sudden add a little bit of coverage to my makeup. It will look a little bit cakey, and I don't like that. I don't like that I have to be like really, really careful with it. And I have learned, that when you apply powder, you really have to buff it out. I've noticed that when I'm lazy and I just like kind of pounce it on and I just do something really quick, I'm not really letting the powder do its thing. So what I like to do is just, add a little bit by pouncing first, so I'm not moving anything underneath. And then I'll take just a touch more and I'll use that to really buff out my entire complexion. So that's how I apply powder. And what I noticed about the Hourglass was I was like, this is really kind of like inconsistent, in terms of like, I don't know what to expect when I use this, but it's because I wouldn't be using like the exact same amount every single time. Whenever I use just a little bit more, if I was kind of careless or if I didn't knock off my brush, that's when I would not like the powder. It just would look very, very heavy on my skin. So that's the Hourglass. Very nice, but you have to be careful. Now, this powder from Michele is actually beautiful. I really, really like the finish. I really like the packaging. I've made a mess of it, but I love any powder that has like a lid or whatever. I think it just keeps it tidy. It keeps it tidy, makes it a little bit more travel friendly if you do want to travel with your loose powder. There's no fragrance. It doesn't add any pigmentation. I didn't feel like I had to be super careful with this powder. The only issue I have with this powder is its longevity. It's so light and it's so undetectable that I felt pretty shiny whenever I wore this powder. It just didn't really last throughout the day. And I understand, with some powders, you definitely have to like repowder, but again, because I have dry skin, I don't usually have to. So if I have to, that usually means the powder is just, it's not powdering. It's not doing its thing. So that's my only gripe against the Michele, is that it just didn't last that long on my skin. Next up, I've got the LYS powder. This is their, what's the full name? Anyway, it's the LYS loose powder. I really like the LYS pressed powder. I think that's a great powder. It's like undetectable. It's really light. It does a nice job, setting down and bringing shine down, but I never feel like it makes my, complexion look really flat or anything. So this powder is, it's matte. Yes, it is definitely on the matter side. It definitely does not have like a softness to it or whatever. But I think what bugged me the most about this powder is that I noticed it clung to some spots that I had that maybe it was like a little dry spot or something I like picked off or something. Like it would cling to little areas. It clung to like the tip of my nose a little bit strangely. So this one, while the finish is matte, not my favorite, but it wasn't horrible. It wasn't like the most matte. It wasn't like the other ones I talked about. This one just kind of had like a clinging problem. So that was not great. That was not great. And that's the LYS powder. Next up, sort of the same issue as the LYS is the YSL loose powder. This is the All Hours Hyper Blur loose powder. And if I forget to mention, or if I can't find the shade or whatever that I'm using, everything will be listed down below in my description box if you're curious. Now, this finish was a bit nicer than the LYS in that it's matte, but it had more of like a blurred, filtered look to it. So I really appreciated that. But this did the same thing the LYS powder did. It clung to areas. And so a few spots on my face where this looked a little bit heavier than I liked, a little cakier than I liked. So that's the YSL. I was a little disappointed, and it happened like the first few times I used it, and I was like, maybe it's just me. And I remember trying it with like a different, foundation, whatever, and it just kept doing it. And yeah, and so I didn't really like that. I didn't like that about the YSL. So that's the YSL. And then Chanel. I like this powder. I really do. It's the Natural Finish Loose Powder. I do have it in the shade 12. And, there's just something about this powder. It just doesn't do anything for my complexion. I think it does everything it's supposed to. I think it brings down shine. It sets down my makeup. It does last all day. It has like great longevity, but there's nothing blurring. There's nothing kind of softened about my complexion. It's just like powder. It's just loose powder. And if that's what you just want a straight up loose powder. You don't want to do anything fancy. You don't want any sort of like, soft creaminess like I keep talking about. You don't want any sort of like soft sheen. I think you'd really love the Chanel. I think you'd really love it. But to me, it's okay. It's okay. No surprises or whatever. Like out of all of these powders that I'm talking in this particular, like it's okay category, this one is the best by far. This one almost made it into my favorite powders. But I thought, am I just being swayed because it's Chanel? Because it has like the 2 cc's? Is it because like I love taking it out and using it? Maybe, but when I look at it after applying it, it's okay. It's an okay powder. It's an okay powder. Anyway, I'm sure that's a very unpopular opinion, but there you have it. Oh, and this one, actually, I lied. So Guerlain is not the only one that has a fragrance. This one has a fragrance, but it is much fainter, much fainter than the Guerlain. All right, and now for my favorite powders. Why don't we go ahead and start with actually what I have on my skin. It is the Milk Makeup Loose Powder. Now, this is their Pore Eclipse Translucent Loose Setting Powder. And this is one of those powders that has a matte finish, you guys can probably tell, but because it's so velvety and blurring and there's like a softness to it, this is the kind of matte I can deal with. It's not flat, it's not lifeless, it has a softness to it. And yeah, I just really love it. I think they do have a few shades in there. I think mine is just, yeah, it's translucent light. The packaging is okay. It's got that swing top and it clicks into place and then it just has sifter holes. So decent. I do like that little extra spinny thing. It does keep it from getting a little, getting too crazy in there. And this is definitely a powder that kind of crept up on me. I remember when I first used it, I was like, okay. And then the second time I used it, I was like, oh. And I remember thinking like by the end of the day, my skin looked really nice still. I was like, oh. Anyway, it grew on me and I really enjoy this one. This next one is from Rare Beauty. Now this was a surprise also because same as the Milk, it kind of crept up on me. And I ended up getting, for some reason, the light medium. I don't know if it's because the light just looked too light or they didn't have the light. I cannot remember why I ended up with the light medium, but no matter because it is very translucent. So I don't feel like it's giving me any kind of additional pigmentation where I feel like, you know, maybe I put on a foundation that's too dark. So it doesn't do any of that. It just has a really beautiful finish. Again, very soft. It's not quite as matte as the Milk Makeup, so it doesn't look quite as velvety as that one, but it has just a nice blurring to it. It looks very soft on the skin. You're gonna hear me say that a lot. It looks very soft on the skin, and it wore really well throughout the day. So very impressed with the Rare Beauty. And just to show you also, the packaging is very nice. It has this swing open packaging and then some sifter holes there. So really appreciate when they take a little bit more time to design the top of these loose powders. So that's the Rare Beauty setting powder. I think that's the name. Another powder that I love and I've been using a lot of, you guys have seen me use it a lot, is the Kosas Cloud Set Translucent Loose Setting Powder. So I have buttery, what is it called? Translucent buttery and translucent candy. So the pinker one I use if I want to brighten. The buttery one I use just kind of like all over normal. If I'm feeling extra, this goes like in the center of my face and the yellow one goes like on the perimeter of my face. But if I'm just using one powder, generally it's the buttery one. This powder is awesome. It has just such a beautiful, soft, filtered, blurred look to it. My skin looks so creamy, so touchable, so touchable. It is so gorgeous in studio lighting, in natural lighting. It has like a no powder kind of like look to it. It's not heavy at all. I really love it. And this is probably my favorite packaging where it has this lid and it just lifts up. So you're not spinning anything or anything, it just lifts right up. When I shake it around and I lift this up, it seems like just enough of the powder is there and on the little plugs there for me to pick up some powder. It's great. And I really love this powder. This powder too is also one of those powders I feel like I can put on and on and on, and it doesn't do like what Hourglass does, which all of a sudden it just starts to look really heavy and really cakey and just thick. It never does that. It just is just this light whisper of a powder, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love it. Now, well, I really talked up the Kosas, but we are at my top 3 powders. And this one you guys have heard me talk about in the past. I probably haven't used it that much lately because I've had all these other powders to play around with, but I've been using this powder for a long time. It's the Saie Air Set Radiant Loose Setting Powder in Translucent. I think I got this when they launched it, and I've been in love with it ever since. It has just such a wonderful, soft satin, creamy, soft like look to it. Yeah, it's just really gorgeous. The packaging, again, it has that spinner top and then it opens up to sifter holes. So very nice, very clean. And my skin just looks impeccable when I wear this powder. The same goes for the Chantecaille. Now this powder is probably one of the first powders, because this was a gazillion years ago, but this was one of the first powders that they actually put in their name, and I think they've taken it off at this point, but they actually put in their name that it was talc-free. This was like at least 10 years ago. I was like, oh, talc-free. And I remember going to the Chantecaille counter, getting my first tub, because this is not my first tub, getting my first tub, and the woman emphasizing, you know, this is talc-free. So they were one of the first ones to just get rid of talc from their powder. So this packaging is not my favorite. I appreciate that this is like aluminum, I believe, and it's recyclable, but it's just got a sifter top. Nothing fancy, nothing spins open, nothing flips open. So not my favorite, but the powder is gorgeous. You know, I'm repeating myself at this point, but it's very similar to the Say. It's very similar to my Kogan-Do Natural Lighting Powder. There's a really beautiful, soft, light, gentle kind of powder to it. It's just not, it's not terribly mattifying, but it brings shine down. Great long wear. This powder has just never done anything wrong. It's never done anything wrong. It's never like clung to anything. It's never caked up strangely. It's never not worn well throughout the day. It's just a really, really great like workhorse powder, and it just looks so soft on the skin. So I do love this Chantecaille. And last but not least, this is my favorite talc-free loose powder. This is the Addiction Tokyo Invisible Essence Loose Powder Glow Plus. So I have shade 001, and this guy just has a net on the top. It does come with this plastic cover that I've kept just to kind of keep it clean. So it has this net on top, which I actually like because it sifts the powder. So when you pick it up on your brush, there's no like clumps on there. Not that that's a big deal because you just end up blending it out, but I don't know. I kind of like a net. Anyway, this powder is absolutely gorgeous on the skin. You know, it has like a little bit of a glow, but when I say glow, like when it comes to loose powder, I'm not talking about anything close to like a highlighter, nothing like that, but just a sort of luminescence to the skin. It sets down my makeup, it brings down shine, it does everything, it lasts all day, but somehow my skin is able to look glowy and luminescent, and you know, there's still life to my complexion. It has such a soft touch. I can't over powder with it. It's just gorgeous. It is an impeccable, impeccable powder. And after using all of these, all of these over the past 2 months over and over again, this one has been consistent. It just goes on beautifully. I highly, highly recommend this Addiction Tokyo loose powder. It is gorgeous on the skin. Okay guys, so those were all 16 of the talc-free loose powders that I tried. I know there's more out there. I know there is. I'm sure I'll be continuing to try them, but those were the 16 that I landed on, and I hope you found that useful. Again, I will leave links to all the powders down below, and I will put them in blocks like how I talked about them, the ones that I just don't like, the ones that are okay, and the ones that I really love. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video.